I'm Dr. Jim Taylor, and welcome to Prime Family Alert. This segment of Prime Family Alert focuses on frustration. Frustration may be your children's most significant obstacle to achieving their goals. We've all experienced the feeling of frustration when we can't seem to get where we want to go. We feel stuck, we get uptight, we lose focus, and we go negative. The best way I can describe this feeling is, argh! It is a truly infuriating feeling. But what is frustration precisely, and what causes it? Simply put, frustration arises when the path toward a goal is blocked. Most people think of frustration as a bad emotion, but it's actually much more complex than that. The fact is that frustration is hardwired into us and has tremendous adaptive value. Frustration starts out as a good emotion because when we get frustrated, we're motivated to remove the obstacles that block our path toward our goals. We try harder, and that extra effort frequently results in clearing that path, enabling us to continue toward our goals. Unfortunately, if despite our best efforts we can't overcome those roadblocks, frustration can become a destructive emotion. In fact, if frustration isn't dealt with effectively and quickly, it can trigger what I call the negative emotional chain, in which frustration leads to a descent into a series of truly unhealthy emotions. If frustration isn't dealt with in a productive way, it can morph into anger. Most people also believe that anger is a bad emotion, but like frustration, it too has both a positive and negative side. Anger actually starts out as being helpful because it too is motivated. When children are angry, they want to go after the thing that's causing their anger. Unfortunately, for most tasks that your children are involved in, for example, school, games, sports, or the performing arts, anger swiftly becomes a harmful emotion. The feelings of anger are like those of frustration, but with the volume turned way up. Children's bodies become so tense that if they're involved in a physical activity, they lose their coordination and the quality of their efforts decline. Their focus narrows so much that they miss important cues necessary to perform their best. And children's thinking becomes clouded by the anger, so they're not able to think clearly or make good decisions. If your children aren't able to clear the obstacles from the path at this point, their emotions shift to the final stage of the negative emotional chain. They experience despair. They've tried and tried and tried, and they still can't remove the barriers. So the natural thing to do, of course, is to quit. What's the point of continuing to try if nothing they do works? The unfortunate outcome of the conclusion of the negative emotional chain, though, is immediate failure to achieve their goals. And it's been my experience that if children move from frustration to anger, continued effort that day usually fails. And if children experience the negative emotional chain on a regular basis, sinking repeatedly into despair, they will likely lose their motivation and be unwilling to make a sustained effort in the future. With each descent down the negative emotional chain, children come to believe that their actions have little effect, and they will progressively lose confidence in their ability to achieve their goals. So, what can you do as parents? How your children deal with frustration is influenced by how you react to it. If you model an unhealthy response to frustration you experience in your life, for example with impatience or anger, they may learn that this is an appropriate way to deal with frustration as well. But if you're calm and positive and look for a solution when you get frustrated, your children will likely adopt that approach to frustration. How you respond to your children's frustration will also affect how they learn to deal with their frustration. If you become angry and impatient with them when they're frustrated, their frustration will likely escalate and more quickly turn into anger and despair, further preventing your children from resolving the source of their frustration. But if you respond to your children's frustration by asking them in a soothing voice what they're frustrated about and discuss how you will help them deal with it, then they will likely calm down and follow your lead in looking for a solution to their frustration. Despite the fundamental role that frustration plays in their efforts to be their best, children are rarely shown how to deal with their frustration in a constructive way. Your goal as a parent is to teach your children to stop the negative emotional chain at frustration by responding positively to the frustration when it first arises. The first mistake that many children make, and that parents often encourage when faced with frustration, is to just increase their effort. In other words, do whatever they're doing more and harder. But then they're violating the law of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. When frustration first arises, rather than plowing ahead, your children should do just the opposite. In other words, step back from the situation that's causing the frustration. For example, if your child can't solve a math problem or learn a new sports skill that she's practicing, she should set it aside and take a break. Stopping the activity creates emotional distance from the frustration, thus easing its grip on them. Next, your children should do something that's fun and relaxing during the break. For example, getting a snack. And in fact, hunger is a significant cause of frustration, particularly among children. Listening to music, or get some physical activity. This step lessens the uncomfortable physical symptoms that come with frustration and generates positive emotions such as happiness and excitement that can counteract the feelings of frustration. A powerful way to counter the feelings of frustration when they've stepped back from the activity is to have your children do something at which they can succeed, thus feeding their feelings of confidence and generating positive emotions such as pride and inspiration. Once the negative emotional chain has been broken, your children should return to the activity with a focus on finding a solution that will relieve the frustration. The process starts with understanding the problem. If they know what the specific problem is, then they have a better chance of finding a solution. Though you want to give your children plenty of opportunity to identify the problem and find the solution themselves, I encourage you to engage in emotional coaching when needed by providing guidance and direction to help them find the answers they need. Here's a helpful hint though. Sometimes it's useful to break down the bigger problem that's causing the frustration into smaller, more manageable problems that they can actually solve. The reality is that children can't always immediately clear the obstacles to their goals, so continued efforts in pursuit of those goals would be futile. The barriers may just be too great to surmount on that day. Your children have two options here. First, they can change their goals to ones that can be achieved in the short term. For example, let's say your tennis playing son is getting frustrated because he's losing a match and nothing he can do will turn the match around. In this case, continuing to pursue the goal of winning will likely take him quickly along the negative emotional chain. But if he shifts his goals, for example, to improving a technical or tactical aspect of his game, he can still experience some success and get something out of the match. Second, there are going to be days when your children just aren't going to make any progress toward their goals. And continuing to try without success will just discourage them and actually hurt their efforts in the long run. In this case, it may be wise to deliberately give up and choose to fight another day. I'm Dr. Jim Taylor for Prime Family Alert.